25 seconds, 20 seconds, 15 seconds. Dr. Holloway, leader of the Los Alamos group, and the entire fleet waits in almost agonized tenseness. Now but 5 seconds to go, and...
The Atomic Age, one of history's most life-changing events. The science of atomic energy gripped the world with so many mysteries and questions that while it grabbed mankind's attention to explore it further, it has also spurred our imaginations.
Godzilla, king of the monsters, alive, surging up from the depths of the sea on a tidal wave of terror to wreak vengeance on mankind. Godzilla, king of the monsters, it's alive, a gigantic beast, stalking the earth, crushing all the...
Godzilla. During the height of this atomic fever, giant monster films would roar onto the big screen and shock audiences from all over the world. However, this monster in particular would rise above so many others and earn the title as King of the Monsters, a fire-breathing tyrant that would be a symbol for nuclear destruction. Surprisingly, this prehistoric beast's iconic name would carry over into paleontology as the discovery of a real prehistoric relic, one that would later be uncovered from the sands of time. While Godzilla is the titan of monster cinema, this predator was a Goliath of its own. In a time when monstrous reptiles ruled over the earth and the dinosaurs were at their first pages of nature's script. While moviegoers know Godzilla as the catalyst for this rule of monster cinema, scientists know this particular coelophysid as the founding member for the reign of the dinosaurs. We would like to invite you to a spectacle of monstrous proportions. One that has reigned for 70 years. In celebration of cinema's greatest monster, we now present to you Gojirasaurus, the Legend Before Odo Island. The origins of Gojirasaurus date back between the 1980s and the 1990s. In 1985, a publication was written by paleontologists Kenneth Carpenter and Michael Parrish for the New Mexico Geological Society. The paper described the various vertebrates that resided within the Late Triassic Bull Canyon Formation in Quay County, New Mexico. This formation in particular is part of the Dockham Rock Group, which has one place of particular importance, known as Revuelto Creek, which would house many different early species of dinosaurs, as well as other types of unique fauna. However, the most prominent find would be that of scattered remains of what appeared to have been a type of coelophysis. Though, upon studying the fossils closer, Carpenter and Parrish deduced that the remains were much more robust than that of the actual coelophysis. One candidate in particular for the classification of the remains would be from an animal called Haltikosaurus liliasterni, otherwise known as Liliasternus. Additionally, it had similarities in its pubis bone to a dinosaur known as Podokesaurus. Unfortunately, the remains were so minimal that paleontologists were unable to make a full description at that time. Just a year prior, on the other side of the world, a production company called Toho would release a brand new monster movie in 1984 called The Return of Godzilla, which marked the arrival of the famed movie monster Godzilla into the brand new Heisei era, 30 years after the original 1954 film. This film's release would once again spark the worldwide craze for Godzilla films after his 10-year absence. This movie in particular would also end up rushing into US theaters as Godzilla 1985, released the same year that the first ever material of this new dinosaur would be published. Throughout the years that followed, the fossils would be examined again by paleontologist Adrian Hunt. He would concur that the fragmentary fossils look like a Coelophysis, but much larger in size and more robust. In 1994, Hunt would attempt to name the mysterious animal Revueltoraptor lucasi. However, the description by Adrian was never published due to it being uncovered that the additional fossils that were added are more than likely from a bipedal pseudosuchian Suvosaurus, which was also uncovered from New Mexico, leaving this classification as a cold case until more evidence was to be unearthed. A year would pass after this attempt at classification. While overseas, Toho would begin to produce another film. This time, Godzilla would make another destructive appearance in the Heisei era. This 1995 film would be called Godzilla vs. Destroya and would be intended by Toho to be the King of the Monsters' final battle and conclusion to the franchise, as he battles against a living incarnation of the Oxygen Destroyer, the weapon that killed the original 54 Godzilla, ending both an era and a monster's dynasty, or so we thought. In 1997, Kenneth Carpenter would finally go on to describe the mystery Coelophysid after a partial skeleton was uncovered in the mudstones of the Bull Canyon Formation. To Carpenter's surprise, this unknown dinosaur was apparently much larger than other Coelophysoids. Due to this, Carpenter would give this Triassic Goliath the name Gojirasaurus Quayi, with the specific name being a reference to Quay County, the place where it was uncovered, and the generic name being derived from the Japanese word Gojira and the Greek word Sauros, with Sauros meaning lizard or reptile, and Gojira, of course, being a reference to the king of the monsters himself, Godzilla, with the full name meaning Godzilla lizard or reptile from Quay County. The excavated fragments from this newly described beast would consist of a tooth, ribs, and scapula bones, just to name a few. Later on, the fossils would be stored in the University of Colorado Museum of Natural History, and a year after this description, news would stir in Hollywood that there were plans to once again revive Godzilla. However, in a whole new and very controversial way. The 1998 blockbuster Godzilla would be America's plan to bring the monster kaiju back from the dead with new twists and turns. Unfortunately, it did not receive as warm a welcome as originally hoped, and Toho would eventually return to the helm with a proper revival to Godzilla, that being the 1999 film Godzilla 2000, just like the ancient reptile that had been forgotten for so long, finally returning to the spotlight. Gojirasaurus was one of, if not the largest theropods of the Triassic. The estimated length was between 5.5 to 6 meters, or 18 to 20 feet long, with an estimated weight at least 150 kilograms, or 330 pounds. In 2018, Professor Roger Benson estimated it to have weighed much more, at around 190 kilograms, or 420 pounds. The only other dinosaur from this time that could exceed Gojirasaurus in size was the South American theropod Herrerasaurus, which would have also reached a length of up to 6 meters and would have weighed 350 kilograms. However, in 1997, Carpenter noted that features of the pelvis and ankles suggest that the holotype represents an immature individual and isn't fully grown. Therefore, this means that Gojirasaurus could have reached even larger sizes, but we won't know for sure until we find more remains. Despite this potentially massive size, it wasn't nearly as big as its namesake. As for this namesake, the precursor to Godzilla itself, from the Heisei era, known as Godzillasaurus, stood at a whopping 12 meters or 39.3 feet in height, which would be considered extremely large even by the standards of other massive theropods like Tyrannosaurus rex. As for comparing Gojirasaurus to the original king of the monsters, the 1954 Godzilla stood at a mind-boggling 50 meters or 160 feet in height, and its size would only continue to dramatically increase as his franchise continued. Due to its fragmentary and mysterious nature, the phylogenetic placement of Gojirasaurus has long been unclear. As stated previously, before its formal description, Carpenter and Parrish placed it in a now invalid provisional group called Procompsognathidae, with Liliosternus liliosterne, while scientists such as Adrian Hunt would attempt to place it as a Herrerasaurid. However, Carpenter in his official description in 1997 would go on to place it firmly within Coelophysoidea, alongside Coelophysis itself and its relative Liliensternus. At the time, the famous Dilophosaurus was also part of this group, but was later placed outside of Coelophysoidea and just outside Averostra, the group that contains more advanced theropods like Ceratosaurus. Additionally, Gojirasaurus has, in the past, also been suggested to be in the same lineage as Dilophosaurus, classifying it as a neotheropod. However, in the 2000s, new phylogenetic analysis would assess that Gojirasaurus is much closer to Coelophysoidea, where it remains to this day, making Gojirasaurus reign as a king of the Coelophysoids. Despite its previous description, Gojirasaurus's validity as a genus has been in debate for decades. Despite some components, such as the pubis and tibia, being undeniably Coelophysoid in nature, the rest of the skeletal remains were suspiciously similar to odd dinosaur-like pseudosuchians, like previously mentioned Shuvosaurus, with the tooth, although clearly from a predator, being easily attributed to any other predatory archosaur. Due to it being a veritable Frankenstein of Triassic material, Gojirasaurus has often been regarded as a metataxon, a collection of fossils for which assignment to a singular species can neither be proven nor disproven. Validity aside, Gojirasaurus is still very much predominant in scientific literature, alongside Liliensternus as large Triassic Coelophysoids, and as of now, it is currently still a valid taxon until further notice. Gojirasaurus lived 212 million years ago during the Middle to Late Norean stage of the Late Triassic in what is now the Bull Canyon Formation in New Mexico. Although it was first defined between 1989 and 1998, fossils from the formation have unveiled numerous new taxa since the 1890s. Sedimentology suggests that the environment of Bull Canyon was a broad fluvial region forming from an aggrading alluvial floodplain. This kind of environment is supported thanks to the presence of many different kinds of freshwater invertebrates, along with aquatic and semi-aquatic vertebrates. The only plants known from the formation consist of mostly vascular plants like Semites, the giant semi-aquatic horsetail Neocalamites, and Semigelia. Interestingly, other root cast and fossilized wood have been found showing signs of damage from fungi. Its phylogenetic placement in Coelophysidae suggests that Gojirasaurus was not only a highly active predator, but it's also likely one of the top predators in its ecosystem thanks to its size. Gojirasaurus hunted, competed, and coexisted with various animals of many different shapes and sizes, especially in a time like the Triassic, since dinosaurs were not the dominant reptiles during this period. As juveniles, they likely hunted snails, smaller reptiles, small mammals like Pseudotriconodon, and juvenile metaposaurid amphibians that are described to the genus Apachesaurus. While they did have a variety of prey to hunt, along with different animals to scavenge from, they were not completely without their own predators as juveniles. These predators include larger metaposaurids, the bizarre archosauriform Vanclevia, the parasuchid Phytosaur, Acheroprosopus, and true archosaurs like the famous Ryosuchid Postosuchus. As they reached adulthood, however, Vanclevia would later become prey, and Gojirasaurus would be able to stand toe-to-toe with most of the top predators in its environment. As adults, they would have preyed on herbivorous archosaurs like the Poposaurid Shuvosaurus and the Aidosauriform Revueltosaurus. When it comes to true Aidosaurs like Paratypothorax and Typothorax, one of the largest members of its kind, Gojirasaurus would have more than likely kept its distance since they weren't built to deal with such heavy armored prey. However, it's possible that they ate younger individuals and scavenged on the remains at best. This is also the case for the early turtle Chinlicheles. Other potential animals that they could have scavenged on include fish like Cementodus, the coelacanth Quaia, and the large freshwater hybodontid shark Reticulotus. As for social behavior, it is unclear if Gojirasaurus was rather social or completely solitary since one specimen is known, but it's not impossible to believe that Gojirasaurus had similar social behaviors to that of Coelophysis, where hundreds of specimens have been found in quarries like Ghost Ranch. However, it is unclear how social they were due to their bodies gathering and being buried together due to flash flooding. If Gojirasaurus was social though, these predators would have had an edge against their competition in their strange Triassic world, being able to fend fend off more heavily built predators like the aforementioned Postosuchus, having standoffs and potential fights for food. Interactions between these two predators would have definitely been a sight to behold. Overall, Gojirasaurus was in a rather unique placement in its environment. While it wasn't the apex predator of its time, the large size did allow it to survive in a world filled with bizarre and mostly armored creatures, in a time before the dinosaurs began to truly rule the world. Despite being named after a blockbuster movie monster, Gojirasaurus has not appeared in a lot of media since its discovery. However, it does have a few prominent spots in pop culture. Starting in 2006, it made its first major appearance in the Japanese anime series Dinosaur King, alongside many of its various games. 12 years later, in 2018, it appeared in 2 films, the first of which being a B-movie titled Triassic World, and the other being the last installment of the infamous Sharknado franchise, known as The Last Sharknado: It's About Time. As for video games, Gojirasaurus has made an appearance in the 2022 mobile game Jurassic World Primal Ops, being incorrectly showcased with a frilled lizard-like appearance. Gojirasaurus has been featured in various mods in other dinosaur games, including Carnivores 2, in a fan-made spin-off titled Carnivores Triassic, as well as being modded into Jurassic World Evolution 2. Overall, Gojirasaurus has appeared in very little media at this given time, though this is likely due to its somewhat mysterious nature. But hopefully, as more information is uncovered about this enigmatic animal, this Triassic legend will be featured in more media as time goes on. Gojirasaurus was an animal in its prime. Being a coelophysoid that greatly surpassed its kin in size, it was able to thrive in a very dangerous environment, full of monstrous archosaurs like the Rhyoschians, as well as other large reptiles. However, just like every other creature that existed long ago, Gojirasaurus was unfortunately a species that didn't last forever, disappearing from the fossil record in the late Norian stage, along with the rest of Bull Canyon's fauna. As of now, we still are not entirely sure what caused its extinction, or if it may have survived past its known extinction date. On the off chance that it did manage to persist longer, it's likely that its large size may have been its undoing. The American Southwest during the Late Triassic could have been subjected to severe weather changes, resulting in droughts that would affect the habitat and prey that Gojirasaurus depended on. These changes would have benefited smaller coelophysoids like Coelophysis itself, as they were likely more adaptable to feeding on a wide variety of prey items, while bigger dinosaurs, like Gojirasaurus, were too specialized in hunting larger prey, which resulted in its extinction. Regardless of why Gojirasaurus went extinct, the legacy of coelophysoids persisted until the early Jurassic. While the group itself did not last long, their descendants lived on. For the next 180 million years, theropod dinosaurs of all different shapes and sizes would later take over various ecological niches across the globe, ranging from genera similar in size to large insects to the largest terrestrial predators of all time. Theropods have remained and continue to be one of the most spectacular evolutionary lineages to ever live in the history of life on Earth. So much so that millions of years after the megatheropods last walked this earth, giant reptiles based off their remains would inspire awe in millions of people all over the world. After the events of the Second World War in Japan, a man by the name of Ishiro Honda would have a vision of a monster that rose from the darkest primordial depths, a creature considered to be a god to the residents of a fictional island called Odo Island, a beast that would soon terrorize the shores of Tokyo and leave a mark on the world stage as a movie star icon. The roar of this king of the monsters would be heard from all over and leave behind a crystal clear image in the minds of audiences. So much so that his name would be left imprinted in science in the form of a mysterious dinosaur. In a way, this animal would be part of this biblical giant's dynasty. Both creatures would hail the coming of golden ages so staggering that they both changed the world in ways almost unthinkable. A monster that would alter the way we think of movies and cause a tidal wave of other beasts to appear on the big screen, and a Triassic animal that would create the most magnificent dynasty of all time, that of the Age of the Dinosaurs. And while Gojirasaurus' reign tragically ended millions of years ago, his namesake is still continuing his rule after 70 years. We as humans create beasts of unimaginable stature. Our ideas flow with the unknown and mysterious, that we simply cannot let them stay that way for long. Paleontologists delved into the identity of a mysterious dinosaur that would reveal more clues as to how a legacy begins. Just like the legacy that stirred in the waters of that small fictional island off Japan's coast. One that would frighten mankind and rival against other towering beasts, showcasing that just like one legend is born, another had begun long before it, and that was Gojirasaurus, the legend before Odo Island. Thank you all for watching our showcase of Gojirasaurus for the King of the Monsters' 70th year anniversary. We really enjoyed the process of making this video and hope you all enjoyed. This video was directed and narrated by myself, TheDinosaurHunter, scripted by myself, SpinoDragon145, The Primal Earth, CrimsonAcro, Straight Up Murph, RangoGamer, and LegitEliminator. Edited by myself, CrimsonAcro, MikeMC9797, The Primal Earth, RangoGamer, LegitEliminator, Straight Up Murph, and SpinoDragon145. The graphic designers for this video are myself for the Gojirasaurus and the original 1954 Shotogoji model, Mephilas Seijin for the Godzillasaurus model, and Straight Up Murph for the Gojirasaurus design. And finally, the researchers for this video were the TheDinosaurHunter, LegitEliminator, SpinoDragon145, CrimsonAcro, RangoGamer, and Straight Up Murph. Thank you all once again for joining us on this special occasion for Godzilla's anniversary, and we will see you again in the next video.